A shell just emptied on this beach. Something inside it died. 12 crabs feel it happen at once. Watch the order they form. Biggest first, every time. Nobody taught them this. This isn't chaos, it's a housing market. No lease was signed, no paperwork exists, yet everyone here already knows their place in line. Somewhere behind them, a second shell sits open, damaged, cracked, ignored. Someone will end up inside it anyway. By the end of this, you'll understand why. Almost none of this crowd walks away with anything. Hermit crabs don't build shells. They rent bodies other animals left behind. A shell is capital, fixed, finite. New supply only arrives when a snail dies. That's the entire housing stock on this beach. Not every shell is equal either. Lighter shells cost less energy to carry. Some crabs even claim shells too big for them now. That's not shelter. That's a bet on future growth. So when one shell opens, it doesn't just get filled. It triggers a reaction with a name economists coined, decades before biologists saw a crab do it. They called it a vacancy chain. Most people assume the biggest simply wins the fight. There is no fight here. There's only a queue nobody controls. The largest crab claims the vacancy first. He leaves his old shell behind, still warm. The second largest was already waiting, already sized up, already positioned. He takes it before it even cools. That opens a third shell, smaller. A third crab moves in, 5 links deep, sometimes 6. Each move triggered entirely by the one before it. Follow the chain to its final link. That crab never touches the original shell. He inherits the consequence, not the opportunity. Right moment, wrong position. Some crabs occupy shells too large for them right now. They're not living in it, they're reserving it. That capacity sits idle while others fight for scraps. Economists call this land banking. Hold the asset, starve the market, wait. One behavior like that can stall an entire chain. Even the supply side is quietly shrinking. Rising ocean acidity is dissolving snail shells before crabs ever inherit them. In one measured population, shell thickness fell by half. Length dropped by more than a third. That's not just scarcity. That's supply eroding in real time. A shrinking coastline of usable capital before the chain even starts. Position beat desire. Size beat timing. You don't win a shell in this system. You wait for the one vacancy that fits your rung. Not every crab waits for the chain. Some manufacture their own vacancy. An attacker locks onto a shell it wants, occupied or not. Then it does something specific. It rams its own shell against the defenders, repeatedly, in bouts, rhythmic, relentless. Biologists call this shell wrapping. The force of each strike carries information, stamina, size, resolve. It's not a negotiation, it's a pressure test. Eventually, one side breaks. The defender is evicted, forced out of a home it never chose to leave. The attacker takes the shell. The loser takes whatever the attacker leaves behind. There's a name for this too, and it isn't a vacancy chain. It's a hostile takeover. No queue, no waiting for a natural opening, just enough force applied for long enough, until resistance costs more than surrender. This is not new to markets either. Corporate raiders built entire careers on this exact move. Buy enough pressure, force a board to capitulate, take control before the target ever agreed to sell. The 1980s were full of exactly this: leveraged, aggressive, fast. Marine biologists have counted this exact scene. Sometimes 40 crabs converge on one vacancy. On average, only 2 or 3 ever get a shell. Everyone else leaves with nothing. Not evicted, not attacked, simply excluded. The chain ran out before it reached them. Now guess what happens to the ones left exposed? Researchers paired crabs of different shell sizes, then introduced a predator. The exposed crab was attacked first, 15 times out of 16. The wrong shell wasn't inconvenient, it was fatal. There's a second group that's most exposed too. Crabs mid-molt shed their exoskeleton entirely, soft-bodied, defenseless, unable to fight for a shell. If they're caught without one during that window, they rarely survive it. This happens on a schedule nature sets, not the crab. Timing it wrong isn't bad luck, it's terminal. It's the biological equivalent of a highly leveraged company mid-restructuring. No capital cushion, no ability to defend the balance sheet. A vacancy chain was never built for the majority. It serves whoever already stood closest to the front. Everyone else just makes the queue look like demand. Exclusion, it turns out, is the mild version. Some vacancies were never good to begin with. Cracked, undersized, barely functional. Researchers found something odd happens then. The chain stalls. It stops moving the way it should. The crab stuck with it won't let go. For a crab with nothing, a bad shell still beats none. So it defends the wreck past the point of reason, fights harder than crabs in perfectly good shells. In real estate, there's a name for this. A home stuck exactly like that. Analysts call it a zombie property. Foreclosure started, never finished. Nobody occupies it, nobody can sell it. It just sits there, dragging down every home around it. That's what illiquid means, in nature or in markets. Nobody downstream wants to inherit it, so it stops moving, and it stops everything behind it. There's a second version of this chain too. Some move one crab at a time, slow, isolated. Others move all at once, a full line, in seconds. Biologists call these synchronous chains. Every crab already queued, already sized, waiting on a single signal. A bad asset entering a scarce market rarely sits still. It gets defended past all reason. And when a market moves in sync, it never moves slowly. It moves all at once. Hold that thought. It explains 2008. Now replace the biggest crab with a corporation. The math doesn't change, only the scale does. After 2008, foreclosed homes flooded the market. Institutional investors moved in immediately. Cash. No mortgage approval, no queue at all. Enough capital to skip the chain entirely. They built massive rental portfolios from the wreckage. Regular buyers competed for whatever remained. Smaller, older, further down the chain. None of this was hidden. It was published, studied, debated for over a decade. It kept happening because the mechanism rewards it. In Nashville, over a third of investor-owned homes came from owner-occupants. Another 15% were newly built, bought before a family ever saw the listing. First-time buyers now compete against firms, not families. Families bring emotion and financing contingencies. Firms bring cash and speed. In a queue, speed always wins. This is the biggest crab, wearing a suit. Position was never about fairness. It was always about who could move first. And speed like that doesn't just win one vacancy. It can freeze an entire system. In 2006, roughly 700,000 American homes filed for foreclosure. By 2008, that number tripled, over 2 million. 2009 broke that record again. That wasn't random collapse. That was a vacancy chain. One bad mortgage entered circulation, repackaged, resold, forced downstream. Those mortgages were bundled into securities, sliced into tranches, sold as safe, rated safe. Almost none of them were actually safe. Each bad link dragged the next one with it. Then the whole system moved in sync, just like the crabs. Banks stopped lending to each other overnight. Nobody trusted what the next asset was actually worth. That's not a housing crisis anymore. That's a synchronous vacancy chain, frozen mid-motion. Nobody could move. Not the banks, not the homeowners. Lehman ran out of moves first. When it fell, the market lost more than a company. It lost faith that any vacancy could be trusted at all. The bailout that followed cost taxpayers roughly $700 billion. Not to reward the chain, just to restart it. Here's the detail that should actually unsettle you. The term vacancy chain wasn't built for crabs. Sociologists coined it in the 1960s, studying human housing and jobs. Nobody documented crabs doing this until 1986. A biologist named Ivan Chase watched it happen off Long Island. He wasn't building an economic theory, he was just watching crabs trade shells. The pattern he found already had a name. We didn't borrow nature's playbook. Nature was running ours the whole time. 2 systems, 1 law. So next time you hear about a housing shortage, remember this. It doesn't produce fair competition. It produces a queue, and a queue only rewards whoever stood closest to the front. Every housing bubble in modern history follows this same shape. Scarcity, queue, exclusion, collapse. The crabs survive their version of it daily. Human economies rarely survive it as gracefully. Scarcity didn't cause the 2008 collapse by itself. Synchrony did. Everyone moving or freezing on the exact same signal. There's one mechanism even crueler than scarcity, though. It's what happens when the entire chain freezes at once. When nobody moves, because nobody trusts what the next shell is worth.